Ladies and gentlemen, as of the recording of this video, we are roughly around a fourth of the way into the NBA season, and I think it's time to start talking about the biggest weaknesses of every NBA team. Now, just a disclaimer, that is a little clickbait. As for time's sake, I really don't want to go over every single team, so what I will be doing is going over the major teams of each conference, and at the end, when we're talking about the lower teams such as the Hawks and the Cavs, I'll kind of just group them all into one because we all know exactly what their weaknesses are. It's not really that big of a deal and it's not really that critical. They're just cheeks. They're just cheeks. So what I'll be doing for the next two videos is going over every, I guess, major player in each conference and their team's biggest weakness. But before we do that, let's go ahead and shout out the sponsors of this video, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that gets tickets from all over the web and puts them on one app so you can get the best deals for all of your event ticketing needs. I've personally used the app to go to numerous games and numerous concerts, and I actually use the app. This is an app that I actually support. They have a lot of very helpful filters. They show you a map of the event you want to go to, and it's all color coded. So if you want to use the app, thanks to SeatGeek, you guys can use the code BSouls for $20 off your first purchase. Links will be in the description. But now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the biggest weakness of every NBA team, starting with the Eastern Conference and the Milwaukee Bucks. So the Milwaukee Bucks, their biggest weakness has to be free throw shooting. The Bucks right now have the second worst free throw shooting percentage in the league. A big reason of that being Giannis shooting a horrendous 60% from the line while averaging 10 to 11 free throws a game, which is alarming since it was just 2 years ago when he was shooting around 75, 76, 77% from the line on 8+ free throw attempts per game. While Giannis has shown some improvement in his mid-range game and even his three-point shooting, free throw shooting is still a big part of basketball, especially in the playoffs and especially in the fourth quarter, and this is not a good sign when a big part of their success does come from the player that also produces their biggest weakness. Number 2, the Boston Celtics. The biggest weakness for the Celtics has to be size. The Celtics don't really have much inside presence on the defensive end. While their offense can be nuclear because of them running Kemba, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Gordon Hayward in the starting lineup at the same time, I do get scared every time they have to go up against behemoths like Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, and Giannis and such, because it's just such a mismatch. When you put Jason Tatum or Gordon Hayward at the 4 and you have Daniel Tice or Robert Williams at the 5, when you see Anthony Davis or Joel Embiid in the starting lineup of the other team, that does give you some cause to pause and some concern. And while Brad Stevens is an excellent coach, that is still a big hurdle that he has to work around, and it's not always a guarantee that it's gonna work. Number 3, the Miami Heat. The biggest weakness for the Miami Heat has to be inexperience. While Miami has turned into a very exciting team this season, and while they do have Jimmy Butler who does give them some experience, many of their key players that contribute to a lot of their success like Bam Adebayo, Justice Winslow, Tyler Hero, and Kendrick Nunn are players that don't have much experience in the NBA, particularly in the postseason. I am worried that come playoff time, that their lack of experience may come back to bite them. However, right now they are a very exciting team to watch, and I'm really hoping the best for them, because the way Pat Riley has constructed this team has been a great example for the NBA and the NBA fans that you don't necessarily need to tank to build a very competitive team in the NBA. Number 4, the 76ers. Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is still Philadelphia's biggest weakness. It's a different year, same problem. While lethal on the open court, as we all know, once the game becomes more half-court oriented, how much will Ben Simmons' shooting woes affect the 76ers' success? While he is taking more threes this season, it's really not much. He's taken like 2-3 total this season. He's still not a good three-point shooter. You know, it's better than nothing, I know, but it's still not much. It's like, getting a 20 on a test, like, okay, it's better than 0, but you still failed. You know what I mean? His free throw percentage is the same thing. It's still roughly 50-60%, and that's terrible. Ben Simmons shooting is still the team's biggest concern. Number 5, the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors so far have been playing above expectations, especially after the loss of Kawhi and Danny Green in the offseason, and for them to be playing as good as they have been is very impressive, and it is a very good sight to see, as the Toronto Raptors were just a fantastic team to watch last season, and it's great to see that it's carried over to this season despite all of their losses. However, so far this season, they have been struggling with playing well against good teams. As of the recording of this video, the Raptors are 6-7 versus teams that are over 500, but 9-0 against teams below 500. While it is good that they are getting the job done against, the weaker teams in the league, it is pretty self-explanatory why it's concerning that against over 500 teams that they're below 500 against those teams. Number 6, the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers have not been aggressive enough. The Pacers, as of the making of this video, are last in the NBA in free throw attempts at 17.7 a game. That simply has to go up, as they are literally the worst in the league at going to the charity stripe. Maybe Victor Oladipo coming back will fix that, but even without him, it is very helpful if a team can get to the line more often than not. Number 7, the Brooklyn Nets. To me, the biggest problem the Brooklyn Nets will have for the remainder of the season is simply just keeping their chemistry good once Kyrie comes back. I am not inferring that Kyrie is a problem to the Nets chemistry wise, at least so far in the season, but in terms of the media and how they like to twist things, I do think that them getting over all of those headlines and just sticking together will be Brooklyn's biggest problem. Because looking at all the stats, for this video I did look at a lot of stats just to see if there are any glaring weaknesses that all of these teams have. Looking at the stats, there's nothing really glaring about the Nets. In most categories, they're middle of the pack, if not above average. There's no one really massively underperforming. Spencer Dinwiddie has stepped up big time once Kyrie went down with an injury. To me, it's just a matter of keeping that momentum once Kyrie comes back, and not, letting all the chemistry problems that they've been hearing in the headlines get to their heads and really affect the team. And while I am saying that the whole team has to collectively put an effort to block everything out, that also does mean that it's Kyrie's job to make sure and try his best to not make headlines that the team has to address in the first place. Number 8, the Orlando Magic. Offense. That, I know that's kind of vague, but that's simply what it comes down to. Their offense is just subpar. When your offense revolves around a post-up big like Nikola Vucevic, and the second best offensive player on your team being Evan Fournier so far, I'm sorry, but that's not really the recipe for success in the NBA. Hopefully Aaron Gordon can step up. Hopefully Jonathan Isaac can as well. But the way they're constructed right now offensively, they're really not going to be much more than what they are already this season. Defensively, actually, they've been pretty solid, with Jonathan Isaac being a breakout defensive star, but again, offensively, they're nothing special. Number 9, the Detroit Pistons. Like the Magic, their offense, again, isn't really anything special. Blake Griffin has been some mid. I'm gonna just keep it real. He's been some mid since he's gotten back from his injury, and if anything, has been so subpar that he's actually been in some trade rumors. Aside from Blake Griffin, who again hasn't been all that, their offense has been relying on Andre Drummond and Luke Kennard to carry their offense. Again, that's just not going to cut it. I believe the Magic and the Pistons are two teams that really don't have anything special going for them, and they're just solid teams, low seed playoff teams for a reason. And like I said in the beginning of this video, for time's sake, let me just say that the rest of the teams in the East, those teams being the Hornets, the Bulls, the Washington Wizards, the Atlanta Hawks, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the New York Knicks, all of those teams, it kind of just boils down to either not having enough talent or terrible coaching. I'm looking at you, Chicago Bulls, and overall just terrible management and team building skills from the front office overall. There's not really one thing that they can just fix and then they can become competitive. These are teams that have a lot of things to fix, and more often than not are favored to lose a game going into every single game they go into. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like on the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will be going over the Western Conference next. Now, as we all know, the Western Conference is considered to be the more deeper conference in terms of how many good teams there are and how many big time players there are in the conference, so that video might be a little bit more longer. Go ahead and show some love on this video. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm out. Peace.